So our last section is going to be on the actual election process, Electoral College. So we'll see a little bit here how the Electoral College works and how we actually end up getting somebody into the White House. So the Electoral College map looks like this. So you can see each state listed on that map, and you can see how many electoral votes they get. So as a refresher here, how do we determine the number of electoral votes for each of these states? Sort of by population. There's a better way to phrase this. Charlie?
Is it the amount of representatives and senators?
Yes. So the number of representatives we know is based on population. So those of you that said population are not wrong, but it's population determines your number of representatives. But for the total count here, we're looking for representatives plus senators. So that gives us our total number. State of Indiana, we are here with 11. So we have 9 representatives, we have 2 senators, give us a grand total of 11. What's the minimum number that a state may have? 3. Why?
There's always one representative.
Always one representative and a minimum number of 2 senators. So that is why you see on this map the smallest number states are 3, right in here. We even have Washington, D.C. represented. I realize that's too fuzzy on the screen for you to see, but they also have 3 electoral votes as a result of which amendment to the Constitution?
That's just Hawaii. That's fuzzy. I think it's 4.
4. Yeah. Why does D.C. get 3 votes?
Because they're included in the draft.
No. 23rd Amendment, you're right, yes. So 23rd Amendment states that Washington, D.C. gets 3 votes. We learned that weeks ago. And so that gives them representation, even though Washington, D.C. does not have representatives in the House or the Senate. So they are included in all of this. So when we look at the Electoral College, you have to look at this system in order to understand the path to victory for a presidential candidate. As we mentioned in class on Friday, you could still win the popular vote but not become president because you lose the Electoral College. The Electoral College is what matters, and so you need to make sure that you have enough of these electoral votes to win the presidency. So we begin here with 100 senators. We're going to add to that 435 representatives. So all we're doing here is we're adding up our total number of electoral votes to find out exactly what we need to win the presidency. Plus we add our 3 voters from D.C. Those of you quick at math, gives us what number? 538. So we add all those together. Why did I have 535? That's bothering me. That's not right. Quick fix. Now I can do math. 538. So half of 538 is what? Divide 538 by 2. Not quite. 269. So in order to win the election here, oh, that did not work out right. Wow. I did, but it was not my finest work. That is for sure. So should have 538 divided by 2 gives us 269. So the plus 1 is only helping us to figure out how many are the minimum number of electoral votes that we need to win. So if we divided the 538 by 2, that's 269. Well, if we have a 50-50 split, then does anybody win the election? Well, not in the Electoral College right away. I understand where you're going. But as we look at this, nobody wins because we have a direct tie. So to find out the number you need to win the White House, we take that 269, we add 1 vote to it to show that you get 270 in order to win the White House. So that means you get 270, the other person could get 268. If it were to come down that close, that would be the closest possible without a tie that we could have. So that's the magic number to win the White House, is 270 electoral votes. This is a formula that you should be familiar with. I don't know that I'm going to ask you to write it all out, but you should be familiar with each of the steps, how we get to 270. So we have the senators, we have the representatives, we have the 3 from D.C. We take all that, we divide it by 2, we add 1, we get 270. So when we are talking about campaigning, we're talking about election, that's the big number that we're looking for. We got to get 270 votes to win the White House. Now, if that does not happen, if we don't get 270, then what happens, David? Goes to the House of Representatives. And so if we get into the House of Representatives, now they're going to break that tie, and they're the ones that are going to determine who our new president will be. So when it goes to the House of Representatives, every state gets 1 vote. Every state gets to, now all of their representatives will meet together and they'll decide how they want to cast their vote. But who does this favor if it did go to the House of Representatives? Well, yes, it would favor the majority party, but think about states themselves. It's going to favor not necessarily large states. It's going to favor the smaller populated states because they actually have a higher and more influential vote per person, all right, or per citizen. So you think about the population in Montana that, I don't know off the top of my head what it is, but I know it's significantly less than California. The state of Montana, their representatives get 1 vote. The state of California, their representatives get 1 vote. And so the people of California feel like their vote doesn't carry as much weight, and the people don't feel like they're represented as well as the people in Montana for that reason. Now, we've had that happen very few times, and never in recent history that has had to go to the House to break a tie. And I kind of hope it doesn't, because I'm a little afraid of what may come out of that. Now, arguments against the Electoral College and some of the flaws in the system. So the popular vote winner may not win the Electoral College. That has happened a number of times in our history. That happened with Hillary Clinton, right?
Yeah.
She won the popular vote, correct? Okay. So she won the popular vote, but Donald Trump wins the electoral vote. Happened back in 2000 with George W. Bush and Al Gore as well. We can go back a few other cases in history as well. And some states argue that other states have more influence in the Electoral College than what they do. So in the Electoral College, California has 55 electoral votes, the most of any state. Wyoming has only 3, and I choose to use those because of the vast population difference. If we were to do the math, and my stats may be a little outdated, but I think the proportions are still pretty similar. It works out for California's 55 electoral votes, 1 vote for every 615,000 citizens. 1 electoral vote for every 615,000 citizens. In the state of Montana, because they get 3, it comes out to 1 electoral vote for every 164,000 citizens. So because of the way we have set it up, the state of Montana, those citizens, when they go to the polls and vote, the argument is that they actually have more influence on the presidential election than does somebody from California, which by the numbers makes sense. But unless we're going to revamp the whole system, there's not a whole lot we can do to change that other than move to Montana. Now, we mentioned the idea of faithless electors the other day. A faithless elector is somebody that is chosen to be an elector for your state, but when they get to Electoral College Day, they change their vote. There's nothing in the Constitution that states that an elector must vote the way his or her state has directed them to do so. Once they get into the state capitol and they cast their ballot for the Electoral College, they can vote for whomever they want. And I mentioned the other day that we had 7 of those from last year's election who decided not to vote for the person their state told them to. So some defected from Hillary Clinton's camp and they voted for Bernie Sanders, or they voted for I can't remember his name. They voted for an Indian chief out in Oregon somewhere in the Electoral College, or they defected from Donald Trump and they voted for one of the other Republicans that they thought would have been a better candidate. So faithless electors are possible. Some states have in their constitution where they can prosecute you if you are a faithless elector. So the federal government's not going to send you to jail or fine you, but the state might because of their election laws. So if you become an elector, you just may want to be aware of that. So in case of a tie here, if it were to happen where it came down to 269 apiece, then it would go to the House, and that does tend to favor small states. So my cartoon, the graphic up there, represents what the Electoral College can look like to some presidential candidates. Because they'll look at certain states as way more important than others. And when we're getting closer and closer to the election, and they believe that they have a state wrapped up, that they're pretty sure that they're going to win that state, they will kind of begin ignoring that state and start focusing on the battleground states where they're not sure whether they're going to win or not. And so that's why states like Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, I would include Pennsylvania in there, as in recent years have been huge battleground states, partially due to the fact that they're really close between Democrat and Republican. The other fact is that they have a lot of electoral votes at stake. And so many states get ignored. Indiana, we were somewhat of a battleground state, but having Mike Pence on the ticket seemed to help in the last election.